Darby Love, and I'm a librarian sort of straddling Nanaimo and Parksville branches right now. And I've had the pleasure of working with Joe and Richard and Deborah for quite a while now. And we're really happy that Ginger Warden is joining us from the Ladysmith branch. Ginger is a very enthusiastic gardener. She has a actually good asparagus bed, so that tells you a lot about her dedication to gardening. If you know, you know, kind of thing. Richard said you can use the chat. Feel free to chime in with your own experiences in there. Clarify questions like what did he say? What's that thing? Um, that kind of stuff. And Deborah and Joe will be keeping an eye on your gardening related questions and those clarifying questions and answering you. Please save your big meaty soil questions for Richard. Put them in the Q&A at the bottom. That'll help us make sure that we don't get your question lost and then don't answer it at the end. So the format is 1 hour generally of Richard's presentation, give or take a little bit, and then we generally have about a half hour of questions and discussion with the master gardeners. Okay, great. And just from a privacy standpoint, the only images that are captured are the five of us. You're not captured in any way, shape, or form. And thanks for being here, and we love having your participation in the chat. Richard, shall I introduce you?
Sure.
If you've been here before, you know Richard's here all of the times because he is the coordinator of this great program and he gets to wrangle adults. Isn't that fun, Richard?
Yes. Lots
Yes,
of fun.
kids are often easier. All right, so just a little bit about Richard. His gardening hobby started as a preteen when one of his elderly neighbors hired him, his first job, to help them in their garden. They showed him what plants were weeds and directed him to a vegetable garden that was in dire need of weeding. He gardened on and off until his teens when he discovered indoor plants like the one behind him. So he started his journey in plant husbandry. The gardening bug had bitten him. After moving to the coast in 1994, he became enamored with the climate and developed a taste for exotic plants, both indoor and outdoor. Take it away, Richard.
Okay, here we got soil health. Now, it is kind of important to have healthy soil, but let me just do some of the reading here first. It's presented by myself with Vancouver Island Master Gardening Association in partnership with VIRL or Vancouver Island Regional Library. Uh, Okay, soil health. The seminar is the property of Vancouver Island Regional Library and Vancouver Island Master Gardeners Association. Uh, is intended for educational purposes only, and commercial use of all or part of the seminar and its contents are permitted without express written consent from Vancouver Island Master Gardeners Association and Vancouver Island Regional Library. This information is seminar. This information in this seminar is science-based and is accurate to the best of VIMGA's knowledge. Use of this information seminar is at the sole discretion, responsibility, and liability of the user. Vancouver Island Master Gardener Association, VIMGA, is a chapter of the Master Gardener Association of British Columbia. Whoops. And an international service organization, especially trained teachers and stewardships of the environment. Master gardeners work in partnership with private sectors and just agencies, garden clubs, service organizations, and private enterprise to teach, promote science-based, sustainable horticultural knowledge methods. Some of the information, images and information are from internet sources and are labeled or cited. We thanked the persons and the companies for their use in this nonprofit educational seminar. Okay, what is soil? Let's see if I can get rid of that. It's a dynamic top layer of the Earth's surface, a complex mixture of minerals, organic material, water, and air. It's a life-giving, living, life-giving natural resource that provides critical support for plants, animals, and microorganisms, and ourselves too. It differs from dirt, which is simply displaced soil without biological or chemical components that support life. The components of soil, what are they? First of all, it's minerals. These originate from weathered rock, which is broken down by wind, water, biological action over long periods. The resulting particles are categorized by sand, by size, by sand, silt, clay, and their proportions determine the soil texture. It's made out of organic materials made of living and decaying plant, animal, and microorganisms. Organic matter, often called humus, in its decomposed state, improves soil structure and ability to hold water and nutrients. Soil holds water in its pores, providing moisture for plants and other soil organisms. Air, it's really important for the roots. Like water, air is important for pores between the soil particles and is vital for respiration of plant roots and soil organisms, living organisms. The soil teems with billions of microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, earthworms, insects, which contribute to the nutrient cycling and decomposition. Okay. The soil is formed through a process called pedogenesis. Now, what pedogenesis is, it's a process of soil genesis and is regulated by the effects of the place, environment, and history. Biochemical process act both create and destroy within the soil. These alterations lead to the development of layers, termed soil or horizons, and they're distinguished by the color, structure, texture, and chemistry. This doesn't occur just in a couple hundred years. It occurs over thousands of years. As the soil matures, it develops distinct layers or horizons that differ in composition and characteristics. So each soil level has different components to it. The O horizon is the uppermost layer composed of mostly organic material, such as decomposed leaves and bugs. The A horizon, the upmost layer composed, nope, sorry, topsoil rich in minerals, decomposed organic materials. This is where most plants grow their roots. B horizon, the subsoil which contains accumulated clay and minerals. Horizon C, the substratum, composed mainly of rock fragments from which the soil develops. And then the bottom one is the R horizon, which is the bedrock, lies beneath the soil profile. Now, these layers could all be different thicknesses. Here on the island, in most places, the bedrock is not too far beneath our feet, so we don't have lots of soil. Soil stratification. Now, this is the process after the process of pedogenesis. Soil strata are distinct layers or horizons in the soil, each with its own unique characteristic that makes up soil profile. See, we have the O, which is the humus, topsoil, which is the minerals and humus. We have subsoil, parent rock, and bedrock. Factors that influence by soil strata. Water movement. abrupt changes in pore size between layers substantially affects how water will move through the soil. Water can accumulate at the boundary between layers, and we've seen that in clay soils, where if you have a clay layer and you water you'll find that the water will just hit that clay layer and just leach out. Uh, Load-bearing capacity. Some stratas have greater capacity to support weight of structures than others. Understanding these layers is crucial for construction and foundation design. Now, that's not only your house, but it could be your greenhouse, it could be sidewalks, it could be anything. The last is root systems. Soil stratification, it can limit how deep the roots go into the uh, the soil. It affects its health and longevity. Formation of soil strata. Now, stratification is a natural process that deposits new material on the surface and eventually gets buried and compacted. Key factors in formation include water and erosion, wind, water, and ice break down existing bedrock and transport the resulting sediments to the location. Now, that could be glacial till, it could be a river, it could be by the seashore where you get sand deposited on the beach. Deposition. These sediments, these are deposited in horizontal layers in environments such as riverbeds, lakes, and oceans. So basically, in the wintertime here in the island, the water is very silty. So that would be on the deposited at the on the bottom of the river. Deposition, compaction, and cementation. More layers accumulate on the top. The weight compresses the underlying layers, and it over geological time, this pressure, along with chemical processes, solidifies the sediment into rock, and that would be sandstone, shale, any of these. But that's over millennia. Biological activity. Now, decomposition of plants, animal matter adds organic matter to the soil, accumulation contributing to the foundation of distinct horizons. Sudden events. Now, what this could be is like a flood. Volcanic eruption can create distinct layers that are bracketed by more gradual sedimentary deposits. So in other words, you could have different layers, like you could have a soil layer, and then you can have volcanic on top of that, and then more soil on top of it. And that's how basically it's all created. Here in the island, we have various soils. Most of them are a sand and clay mix, although up close to the mountains, it's more bedrock. And there's a lot of volcanic rock here in the island. Chemical indicators of healthy soil. Now, what do we think that would be? Well, it's related to the nutrients and overall chemistry in the soil. pH measures the soil acidity and alkalinity, which affects nutrient availability. Most plants thrive in that 5.5 to 7.5 pH level. Nutrient composition. Healthy soils contain sufficient, not excessive levels of essential nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. These can be measured with soil tests. Organic matter is one of the most important indicators, as organic matter improves the soil structure, holds moisture, stores nutrients, and provides food for microbes. cation exchange capacity. Now, this is important because the soil ability to hold on to exchange positive charge nutrients and high CEC indicates good fertility. So it's a measure of the ions in the soil. Next would be salinity. Excessive salt levels measured by electric conductivity can negatively affect plant growth. So that's why by the ocean side, you aren't able to grow a lot of the more um, plants that don't react good to salt. Like there's a few that actually do quite well in salty soil, like Rugosa roses, for instance. They're a uh, beachfront or oceanside rose from Japan. Physical healthy soil indicators. Again, physical indicators. Loose and friable structure. Now, what I mean by this is the soil is easily worked. It's not compacted. A simple test is to push a metal rod 6 or 8 inch, 6 to 12 inches deep, and just see how much resistance there is to you actually putting that metal rod in it. Resistance within the first few inches indicates compaction. Now, if you have a house that was built in the last, well, house basically built, when they're building the foundation, they always take the soil from the foundation and pile it onto whatever soil is the natural soil. So it changes the whole strata of the soil. So keep that in mind if you're building a new garden, as I have. I've had to brought in 6 inches of sand, on top of that 12 inches of soil, and then on top of that another 4 inches of bark mulch. And that was just because of the fact that the house was sitting on clay. Good water infiltration. Water penetrates and easily is held well rather than pooling on the surface or running off. So if you actually water and you notice it's not actually sinking in but watering off, then chances are you have, or flowing off, chances are you have a fair amount of clay in your soil. Another good way to just actually for the penetration and the soil is to do a perk test. Just dig a hole and into the soil, fill it with water, and see how long it takes to empty. And if it's still there within 15, 20 minutes, well, you've got a layer of clay, and planting anything in it in that particular spot will not work very well unless it's something that will survive in clay soils. Now, towards the middle of this presentation, I have some plants. Actually, in one of the next couple of slides, that they're an indicator of what your soil is. Resilient structure. Soil clumps together in stable aggregates that can be broken apart with your fingers. In other words, if you put this soil in your hand and it forms a ball and it easily crumbled, then that's basically the type of soil you would want. You wouldn't want something that's like a really clay and a greasy sort of feel, because that's not going to drain very well. Deep rooting. Roots can grow deep and wide without being forced sideways by restrictive layers. Now, dark brown or black color often indicates high organic material. I know in the prairies, all their soil is nice and dark, and then here in the island, it's very sandy, so the color is not as much, not as dark, but still can be really good soil. Biological indicators of soil health, earthworms and other organisms. Presence of earthworms, fungal threads, hyphae, or other visible organisms a strong sign of healthy living ecosystem. In other words, if you have a soil with nothing in it, it's not soil, it's dirt. If it's got earthworms and organisms and things are growing it, then it's soil. Uh, Microbial activity. Healthy soil contains a large, diverse population of beneficial organisms that cycle nutrients, break down organic material, and can be measured by indicators like soil respiration. Now, some of these bugs we don't like in our gardens, but uh, they're necessary. They actually work quite well to break down the compost or the vegetative material that you've got in your garden. We have decomposition, and we know what decomposition is. The smell of the soil. Does it smell good and earthy, or does it have a foul smell to it? Can be a really good indication of, let's say, if the soil is wet all the time, you'll have that stagnant sort of musky smell. Or if it's actually good and organic, there's that healthy soil smell. I don't know how to describe it, but you can tell. Three simple tests for your soil. Now, the information will be in the handouts and they will be sent out. There's the soil hand test. Does your soil form a ribbon? Now, I've got some videos on these, so stay tuned. Soil texture jar test. And weeds as soil condition indicators. Look at the weeds that are growing.
Mulch in the topsoil and kind of get to the foundation. So you can see as I dig here, I can start to get an idea for the soil. Mine's not super wet. I want to wet it for this ribbon test. And essentially, what we do is we take a lump of soil in the palm of our hand, and we want it to be moist. And when we squeeze it between our thumb and forefinger, you see we create kind of a ribbon of soil, a thin ribbon. And essentially, what we're looking for is it either all sticks together and I can create a really long ribbon as I squeeze, it creates a shorter ribbon and breaks apart slowly, or it just comes out crumbling. And the first is actually a sign of clay soil. The second is loamy, silty soil. And the last is actually sandy soil. You can see here that mine's a little bit sandy, but it actually sticks together. So it's a nice kind of silty loam, which is exactly what you want. Holds water, has lots of air holes for oxygen and retention of nutrients. And I like to do it at a couple different levels just to make sure as I go down into my root structure, I can get a feel for for kind of the texture of the soil and what I need to add and how I need to improve it over the growing season or over the winter to make it more hospitable for my plants and the roots. While I'm doing that, I can look for some worms, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But you can see here I've got some really nice soil. This is my hydrangea bed, which I've worked on over the years. That really has a nice texture to it, and it feels really good. Secondly, I'm going to do the ribbon test. So
And this is the mason jar test. Now, we were told to add soap to it. This fellow doesn't seem to like to add soap to it. Also, he actually sieves it so there's actually no organic material. He is just doing the sand, clay, silt.
That's a big old jar. The bigger, the better in this case. The only requirement is that the jar needs to have straight sides. Next, get some soil from your backyard it's best to dig straight down at least 6 inches to get an accurate picture of what you have. It's a good idea to sift your soil with a strainer. Take this time to remove any larger rocks, roots, or other organic matter you find. Breaking up your soil like this will also help your soil dissolve faster and yield a more accurate soil profile. Fill your jar a third of the way up with your sifted soil, and then fill your jar with water, almost to the top, leaving a small gap for air. Violently shake your jar for about 3 minutes, and then set your jar and don't touch it. Wait 60 seconds, and with a marker, mark the level the sediment has settled. This is your sand layer. And then leave. Don't move the jar. Don't even look at the jar. Come back 2 hours later and mark the level on the jar. This is your silt layer, and then leave again. Completely forget about the jar for 2 days. Come back and mark the final level. This is your clay layer. Now comes the boring part, math. The goal is to find the percentage that each layer makes up. Use a ruler to record the height of each layer, divide it by the total height, and multiply by 100 to get a percentage for each layer. Pause this screen if you need to. The soil texture triangle is in increments of 10. Surround your answers accordingly. Plot your percentages on the USDA soil texture triangle to see where your soil lies. I'll put the link in the description for easy access. Where the lines intersect tell you what kind of soil you have. Our soil ended up being on the border between sandy loam and sandy clay loam, but since the water was still pretty cloudy, we can assume that there was still some clay that still needed to settle when we took our measurements. So we can shift the clay reading just a little bit higher, moving us well into the sandy clay loam category. The results of this test are not the end all be all of what you have. There are plenty of things you can do to move categories. You can add sand or compost to help balance out your garden. What kind of soil did you end up having? If you like what you saw, why not consider subscribing? Here's the notification icon. It's a well-known fact.
Okay, this will be on the handouts also. If you understood what he was talking about by measuring and everything else, on the bottom you see the percentage of sand from 0 to 100. Then you have 0 to 100 with clay, and then the silt on the other axis. Typically, you want to be in the loam area, like a sandy loam or a silty loam or loam. Okay, plants are indicators of soil health. Sorry about that. Nitrogen-rich soil. And these are some of the plants that would be an indicator of nutrient-rich, dense soil. Stinging nettle, chickweed, cow parsley are really good indicators of nutrient-rich soil. Low hydrogen and nutrients, lavender, rose, sage, rosemary, sage, wild carrot thrive in soils that are poor in nitrogen. Low calcium, dandelions, burdock suggests that the soil is low in calcium and may have a higher potassium. High phosphorus, purslane is a sign of fertile soil with high phosphorus levels. Low potassium and fertility, yarrow grows in sandy, dry soils with low potassium. And here on the island, yarrow is almost invasive because it grows so well. And it is quite tolerant to sandy and dry soils. Soil texture and moisture indicators. Okay, compacted soil, curly dock, dandelions indicate that the soil is compacted. Now, those dandelion roots can go in quite deep, so they are quite thugs, let's just say, in the garden if you let them grow. But people eat the leaves, and the flowers are kind of pretty, and they're there for the bees. Sandy soils again, savory, lavender, rosemary, or oregano. Oregano is a good indicator of sandy soil. Heavy soils, parsley, mint can indicate clay or heavy soils. And mint just travels like anything. It just, if you have heavy soils, put in mint, but beware, it can be invasive in a garden. High water content. Plants like Sagnum moss, sensitive fern indicate wet or waterlogged conditions. And here in the island, there's, what is it? Skunk cabbage is a good indicator here on the island, and ferns. Some of the ferns like maidenhair fern. Soil pH indicators. Acid soil, blueberries, rhodos, certain types of heather grow well in acid soil. Here on the island, acid soil. So we grow great rhodos, blueberries, and heather. Alkaline soil. Don't really see a lot of alkali soil here on the island, but yucca does well. Lupin. These are indicators of alkaline conditions. Chalky soils. Uh, Plants like solid burdock, meadow clary are found in soils with a high lime content. Now, the other thing you have to remember is if you have new sidewalks or new driveways poured, if you're in a new house, probably for about a foot away from the concrete, the soil would be more alkali because of the new concrete, and concrete is made out of. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I was talking about concrete. I have in the past planted plants that actually like more alkali soil by the sidewalks, and that would be Daphne or some of the other plants like what is another good one? Just can't think of one just offhand. Oh, yarrow or yuccas. Adding amendments to your soil. Now, adding amendments. Now, what we're talking is not planting in a in the ground and adding amendments to the hole you're digging for it. What we're talking about is amending the whole surface of the soil. In other words, if it's clay, add some sand, and then work up that way. What you're doing is you're creating stratification within your your garden. Acid sour soil, uh, add sulfur, iron sulfate, sphagnum peat moss, or use acidic fertilizers. Do it yourself include coffee grounds and lemon peels. Alkali sweet soil. To make the soil more alkali, amend it with agricultural limestone, calcium carbonate, bone meal, or eggshells. Dried banana peels, aged manure can also raise the soil pH and alkali the soil. Dry sandy soil. Building humus by leaving organic material that to decompose and using organic mulch around your plants will add some acidity, especially if they're oak leaves and pine leaves. That will acidify your soil. Natural fertilizers can acidify the soil. That includes bone meal, coffee grounds, cotton seed meal, fish emulsions, fish meal, seaweed, sphagnum moss can help with water retention. Wet or moist soil. Now, this can be a bit of an issue, especially if you live in a place in a floodplain or something like that. Floodplains don't normally, you get quite a bit more clay in a floodplain. So if you are going to build in a floodplain, I think now you have to build on top of the floodplain. So you've got to add about, I think it's 1.5 meters of soil and then build on top of that because of floods. And here on the island, it has to do with floods as well as sea level rise. Uh, so to So to keep your planted area to develop humus and keep the topsoil from drying out, add compost to bind the sand together and help retain moisture. Wood ash can also help with water retention, but use these carefully because they can burn the plants. Wood ash is highly alkali. Compacted and crusty soils. Well, I think we've all seen that if we have after rainfall, you can see that the top layer of the soil has a crust on it. Uh, Low fertility soils. Generous amount of compost organic matter can help break up clay soils, improve drainage, cover the surface of topsoil to help plants root, aerate compacted areas with a broad fork, raise beds to loosen the soil and prevent aeration and provide aeration. So in other words, unless you have an unlimited budget, then you would be probably best to just either amend a small area of your yard and put your vegetable garden there, or do what some people do, and it just use raised beds to grow in. Soil contaminants. Yeah, soil contaminants. Who knew? Well, if you ever been by a decommissioned gas station, you'll see those pipes sticking out of the ground. Well, they're removing the volatile oils like the gasoline, the fumes from that. Uh, Heavy metals. Now, the heavy metals would be lead, arsenic, cadmium, mercury, and copper. Organic chemistries found in chemicals found in oil, gasoline, solvents like those used for cleaning or dry cleaning. Hydrocarbons, organochloride, chlorine, pesticides, and others used in agriculture. Yeah, so the soil can build up with these hydrocarbons. Pesticides. Again, that would be agriculture. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are from sources like vehicle emissions, cigarette smoke, and coal processing. Now, on the island, there's been a lot of issues with runoff from roadways and especially into the streams where they have found a lot of these chemicals from car tires and from cars idling. So that's if you live next to a highway or something like that, keep that in mind. Also, if they do spread salt on the roadways, then that's something else you have to keep in mind. The salt will cause issues for you when you're going to plant. Volatile organic compounds. These are often found in cleaning agents, solvents, and petroleum products. Yeah. Other pollutants. Radioactive materials. Yeah, from nuclear accidents. Who knew? But actually, a few years ago, when the Fukushima nuclear plant was flooded out, there was a plume of radioactive materials that actually showed up over Western Canada. And some of it actually did land in our soil. But the nice thing about it is it was washed away by our rainfalls. Ash, and that's from burning coal or other materials which contain heavy metals. Now, we don't use a lot of coal here, but I don't know if you knew this, but forest fires are very difficult on some forest fires are difficult for growing next to, or actually a fire, let's say in California, when they had the big fires in Los Angeles. The soil there is quite polluted because of these fires. Now, the houses burned down, all the organic chemicals got leached into the soil, the lead, and all these other things. So it is, yes, ash can be an issue. Foundry materials. Now, not a lot of foundries here, but there is a foundry in Nanaimo. Was a foundry in Nanaimo. It's where the park at the mouth of the that river, Millstone River. There was a foundry there, and they had to cart off some of the soil because of that. Electronic waste, e-waste. Biological pathogens and micro and nanoplastic particles. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but every time we put our synthetic clothes into the dryer, we end up with lint. And this lint does contain quite a few micro and nanoplastic particles. Now, I know some people use it for birds, for nesting and stuff like that, but you're actually just entering it into the biosphere. And I don't know how, I don't really understand how that would affect, but I know it can't be good because the oceans are actually contain quite a few of these nanoplastic particles. And they found it through the bodies of fish when they wash up. They look at the text, the actual flesh, and they find these micro and nanoplastic particles. Sources of contamination, industrial activity. Now, we already talked about foundries and chemical manufacturing plants, gasworks, and pulp and paper mills. Yeah, these are all sources of contamination. Use of fertilizers and pesticides in agriculture. Historic land use. Sites of old gasworks, service station, landfills. And my property, one end of my property was used for glass. And we've been going through the soil, raking and everything else, and we find all these little glass pieces, glass shards in there. And at one time, this property must have been used for a dump or something. Household activities, leaking oil tanks, coal heating, and improper waste disposal. Transportation. Now, I did talk about transportation, and that would be heavy traffic can lead to lead and PAH contamination. Now, that's not only in the soil, but also in the water table. Nuclear disasters, or natural disasters, and accidents. And that's pretty well self-explanatory. Oops. Know your soil. Why would you want to know your soil? Well, it affects your choice of plants. pH, acid soil, you can grow like all the acid liking plants like blueberries, rhodos, and azaleas, and all these other ones. And then, so yes, it's important. Soil type. Yeah. What type of soil you have? Is it clay, or is it sand, or is it a loam? This all takes makes a big doesn't give you the choice, as much choice as you can, depending on the soil. The perfect soil would be a loam. Soil strata. Again, soil strata on here on the island in some places only about a foot, and then you're onto bedrock. So you're not going to plant something that actually needs deep, deep roots. Drainage. I think we already talked about drainage. Water table. Yeah, the water table can be problematic depending on how deep the water table is. Now, remember when I was talking about actually doing a perk test? Well, if you dug a hole and the hole was filling up with water, then your water table is quite high. Compaction. Now, that doesn't only mean natural compaction, it can mean compaction with heavy equipment around the house, when you're building, or if you bring in a big truck with soil, that'll compact it. The history, again, fertility, bioactivity, and salinity. Now, here is a soil map of Vancouver Island. Now, you can normally find a lot of these maps on, let's say, in your either state or provincial website. This one was from the provincial website, and it was especially Vancouver Island. And as you can see, we are mostly weathered, silty, gravelly, some clay, weathered volcanic rock. The only, yeah, you can see sand, sand, gravel, and gravel. And it's interesting enough that you can see this. This would be Nanoose Bay, and Nanoose Bay is mostly gravel. And actually, they don't have a lot of soil there other than in the valleys. And I think I'm pretty well done. Here's my references. Washington State University Master Gardener's Manual, University of British Columbia, Vancouver Island Soil Distribution Map, Celtic Farm, YouTube. That was the one on the ribbon test. Wanted was the one with the jar test. Soil Triangle was from USDA. Soil pollutants and soil definitions. It was an AI overview. And I'm done. And I'll stop sharing my. There we go. Okay.
All right. Please put questions into the Q&A. We currently have 0 questions, which I don't think has happened before. So please fix that.
Well, it's either that or there's nothing really to ask me, so it was all there. Hopefully.
One thing that I learned from Dr. Linda Chalker Scott, who is a soil specialist at the University of Washington, Washington State, is that she said one thing to remember about your soil is just as Richard had said, that it's pretty much been hauled in, and you've pretty much changed it from what the native soil is. But always remember that the climate wins. And whatever your soil is, it is very steadily progressing back to its original form. And so all the things about the strata layers and all like that still apply in real time, because that's what the soil wants to do. That's and also look at the native plants, because again, as Richard said, this type of plant likes to grow here, and a lot of what he mentioned are native to certain areas. Like all the herbs that we grow are native to Mediterranean areas that are highly mineralized clay type soils. And so when you're planting, if you keep those things in mind, you won't feel like you have to do massive amounts of work to make your plants happy.
I
So you
think
can
that
kind of work with what the
what you
soil wants
have,
to do. Yeah.
I think basically is right plant, right place, right? And that includes soil, that includes climate, climate zone. It also includes how much work you want to do, right?
Now,
Um,
here's a question, Richard. I've been amending heavily with fish compost and chicken manure, which I think are high in nitrogen. What can I add for more potassium and phosphates?
Potassium. Hmm.
Why have you chosen fish compost and
Yeah.
chicken manure? That would be my first question. What about your soil and your plants told you that you needed those two things?
Yeah.
the other thing that I'd like to add to that real quickly is my understanding is that chicken manure is quite high in phosphates,
Right.
and our natural soil is not deficient in phosphates.
Phosphates.
And if you are putting phosphates into soil that already has enough, the plants are not taking it up. It eventually is going to leach out, and it's going to end up in our groundwater and our rivers and streams and out into the ocean. And this is why things like detergents and things have had phosphates taken out of them, because there's too much and it gets into the water. So chicken manure is very high in nitrogen, as is fish fertilizer, but you need to be really careful about the phosphorus level. So there are better ways to get more nitrogen, which is quite unstable in the soil, and you probably often do need to augment the nitrogen, but
Well,
doing it without adding other things that are already in the soil.
with our heavy rains in the wintertime, a lot of that just gets leached into the groundwater. So,
Exactly. Right.
it is what it is. We do have a question here from Sharon. How much lime do you apply to the soil to change the color of flowers on a hydrangea 30 years old? Apply it the year before. So you would be applying it this fall for the color change in next summer. And how
Something
much?
to
I don't think you have to add a lot.
No. Something to remember too, that with your macrophylla, your older varieties, uh, you're not going to instantly change the color with a paintbrush. And many of the older varieties will start blue, and then as they age will naturally change color.
Pink.
And I had one that would turn green. It was just beautiful at the end of the season. So this idea of, let me see, this year I want pink, or this year I want, doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
The hydrangea is responding depending on its cultivar and the changes of feed and soil, therefore your soil over the season. So if you have a blue hydrangea, particularly an old variety, you're not going to instantly get pink in the middle of May, so think about it also, as Richard said, you start to try to change the acid profile of the soil around any plant, and guaranteed you will make it less healthy.
The other thing,
Unless that change is because the plant is unhealthy and you want to make it healthier. If that old hydrangea is happy, don't mess with it.
no, the other thing is if the hydrangea is next to a new sidewalk, it's going to turn color because of the lime in the concrete. And the lime in the concrete, the first year, it really makes the soil alkali. The second year is not quite as bad, and the third year, and as years go by, the effect on the soil acidity is lessened.
You also need
Here's
to remember whenever you try to change the pH of your soil, either make it more alkaline or more acid, just adding nutrients once won't do it because the
No, it's
soil
got to
will
be done.
always revert back to what it is. So once you decide you need your soil to be more acid because you want a blue hydrangea, you have to keep adding sulfur to the soil every year or twice a year to keep
Yeah.
it acid.
Yeah.
Or
It's
you,
fighting what the soil really is.
you could plant it
Exactly.
in a
And
pot.
remember that your pink, you will buy the new varieties of hydrangeas that are pink, and they're meant to be pink.
Yeah.
And trying to change them to blue is not going to work. They were
The-
bred to be pink,
what
whereas
you
your
will
old
get,
hydrangeas that are blue are more malleable in terms of the soil.
what you will get sometimes is more of a less of a blue, but more of a purple
Yeah, yeah.
rather than the actual red. It'll be more of like a bluey purple sort of color.
Here's a
Um,
question, Richard. What's the best time of year to do the ribbon test and the perk test, as our summers are so dry, or does it not matter?
It doesn't really matter as long as the soil's wet. You know, like you saw in that video where he was wetting the soil. And that's basically it. You wet the soil because you want to see how much clay is in it. You want to see how the soil either stays together in a clump or if it actually crumbles. Now, remember, if it crumbles and you can't form a ribbon, it's got a lot of humus and a lot of,
Sand.
yeah. And if it actually does form a ribbon, then it would be like a loam, more of a loam. And if it just like a big clump, it's clay, definitely.
Mhm.
The woman who said she was amending with fish compost and chicken manure, she added to her thing, she said the soil is basically sand and gravel. The root veg do nothing. So that's why
No.
she's been amending. So there you, why don't you address that, Richard? What she should
Yeah, I would,
do.
what you should do is not amend the soil, but build raised beds, basically. Because no matter what you do in that particular area, for carrots, they like a sand. They don't like rocks or anything else because if you have a rock or even a little pebble, the root will split and you'll get an odd shaped carrot. So the best soils actually for your garden beds is something with high in humus, a mixture of sand, clay, and actually I went through that on the presentation that I did for raised beds basically, right? So, yeah, raised beds is a good idea. But like I said, if you want to amend just an area, then it's always going to revert back, right?
Here's one. Interesting. New gardener here. First time putting my gardens to bed for their first winter. More food first vibe, not formal beds. Well, formal beds, what do you mean? I collected leaves from neighbors. Good for you. Plus, I have compost ready to go. My instinct is to put down old stalks and done plants, then compost, then leaves, then cardboard. I would love to learn more about using stuff that's around.
Okay, well, first of all,
That's a mouthful.
Cardboard, I don't know if I'd use it unless you're trying to kill something in it. But amending the soil using leaves from neighbors, what a wonderful idea. You're actually adding more humus to the soil. Uh, Compost ready to go, that's good. Also, my instincts, old stalks and done plants. Now there, that can be a bit problematic, especially with some root vegetables that would have a club root or anything like that. Basically, the only leaves I would put are leaves from trees and maybe grass clippings and stuff like that. If you're going to actually take rose leaves and put it in there, well, chances are you're going to end up with black spot, right? Because it actually overwinters in the soil and it splashes up on the leaves and it just restarts that whole cycle. It's roses. Uh, like some of the worms, like the wire worms. If you've got grass too close to your garden beds, well, these worms will go in and infiltrate it. So, like I said, to me, the best way is actually if you're just a hobbyist, you're not growing for, like a, a large family, then just raised beds is wonderful.
Plus
I,
that if
I
you're
would
not really, oh, sorry, dear.
I was just going to say, I'd also like to caution against using cardboard in your garden for anything at all. Two
Yeah.
reasons. Number one, it will prevent oxygen exchange at the soil surface, which is essential for not only the health of your plants, but the health of the microbes in your soil. You don't want to suffocate them. And if it dries out at all, it will also prevent water from getting down into the soil. But the other reason, there's been some research recently that a lot of cardboard has forever chemicals in it, PFAs,
Yeah.
and that's going to get into our water system. So cardboard just should not be used in the garden for anything. I know that people swear by it, they love it. You can kill the sod and then I can put a garden in and sure, you kill the sod, but you're killing other things and you're putting terrible chemicals into the soil.
The only thing I might suggest, if you're going to go that route, newspaper. The newspaper actually has vegetable dyes,
Yeah, it's
and
not
it's
toxic,
it's
but
not toxic.
if you're not careful, you can also suffocate the soil if you put too
Right.
much down.
What I
Yeah.
do
Air
is
exchange.
I use my shredder
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
shred
great.
the
Yeah,
paper and then I mix
yeah.
that into the soil
yeah.
or the compost. It adds some carbon to the compost, which actually is yeah, it
Yeah.
degrades quite easily. We
And
have a question.
the important thing too about adding amendments and what you should add, and as Richard said, if you have plants prone to certain diseases and whatnot, remember that compost is um, a pest killer. It's hot, and so if you're not sure, chop the darn thing up, put it in the compost over winter. Let the heat of the compost do the work. And then you've got good soil, good compost to add, and you've got a safe product to add. And we speed up the natural process when we compost by using that heat. So if you're not sure, just compost it. Now,
Yeah.
someone has asked Richard, and this is one of those rather controversial things about biochar. It has been really, really hyped. And
I've
tell us
not
about.
actually ever used it myself, so I have no info on it at all.
Well, I know that I've read about it and listened to the hype, and um, it's it's not magic, and it's not the the thing that will do everything. And I've seen gardens that have used it, and
Maybe we
it's
should having,
Yeah, it really is far more, and it's expensive. And
Do you mind
um,
saying what it is for those of us who don't
oh,
yeah,
know?
I was just going to say,
yeah,
That's my role here.
biochar is basically charred wood that's chopped up.
okay. So it's
Yeah,
like,
it's basically what that is. I mean, they have processed it with some heat and whatnot, but their claim is because it's all crumbly and there's lots of surfaces on it and whatnot, it creates all sorts of areas for microbes to hang on to, and it's all magical. And I don't mean to be denigrating. That's exactly what I have read about it. And yet, when it comes to it doing anything special, um, it's very expensive. And you have everything in your garden to do whatever you need and better than going to biochar. Again, read up more, make your own decision.
I
Okay,
know,
I just looked up an article on biochar by Dr. Linda Tucker Scott in
There we
Garden
go.
Professors, and I put a link right in the Q&A to that article about biochar. And she says kind of basically what you do, Joe, that the
That's where I learned it.
there's not good research. It's not magic like they say it is. It's also, if people who try to make their own biochar end up making something that really isn't biochar and isn't effective at all. What research has been done, if I remember correctly, has been looked at in large agricultural applications, which are not relevant to the home gardener. But check that link and read about, if you're interested in biochar, read what that paper has to say about it.
I know they use biochar in aquariums to actually filter some of the chemicals out of the water. Let's say that would be
Mhm,
nutrients that the fish, like
mhm.
the waste materials of the fish. But I don't know about soil. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
And
Yeah.
and that's partly where the origin of the biochar idea came from. However, the charcoal that they use in aquariums
It's
is a
different.
little different from
Yeah,
the agricultural biochar.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's charcoal.
there was this assumption of a flow through, if you'll pardon the terrible pun. And Dr. Chalker Scott is known as the myth buster. And she's done her PhD was in soil science. And she's done many studies over the year. And so do read her stuff. She was one of my teachers.
Actually, if you do a Google search for horticultural myths, she comes
Yeah.
up. Linda,
Yeah.
Dr. Linda Chalker Scott. She has a page on Washington State University's website that has a list I bet there's 100
Oh, at
between
least.
at
Yeah.
papers, the myth of and the myth of, and tons of gardening myths that she talks about. And it's really, really good reading. So.
I just want to add
Someone
something
has,
about just wanted to add something about compost. The fact that there's two different types of compost. There's hot compost, which Joe was talking about, and there's cold compost, which most of us practice because we don't have the ability to generate those temperatures. So in a hot compost, you can actually put weed seeds and everything else, and they're destroyed in it, and it destroys quite a few of the pathogens and stuff in the compost. But a cold compost doesn't. So basically, it just breaks down. You still have all the weed seeds in there. The nice thing about a cold compost is you do have worms and all those other little creatures that are going through it. But in a hot compost, it's very difficult for a homeowner to have a hot compost unless you have a specific tools and stuff for it. You need, yeah.
the the best way to winterize soil is our next question, Richard, and do best for next year growing season. Go
Uh,
for it.
Where is the question?
In the chat.
I think it's in the
Last
chat.
question in
Lots
the
of
chat.
people have been using the chat for questions.
The
So
best way to winterize soil and next year for the growing season, leaves. Go out and collect leaves.
ain't
You know,
Mother
there's
Nature
all these
smart?
trees around us, like we live in forests, for crying out loud. Just go out, collect the leaves, put them through your lawnmower, put your lawnmower over, run them over, and then it breaks it up and then throw it into your compost.
You don't even have to run over with your lawnmower if you don't want to. If the leaves aren't great big, like maple
Turn
or
it
something,
under.
Yeah,
they're
well,
just
that's what I
regular
Turn them
mean.
sized
under.
leaves.
Yeah.
I just go out into my backyard and I very gently rake the leaves off the lawn into the flower beds because the leaves are also places where a lot of beneficial critters and insects and things overwinter. So
Right.
it's best to not disturb them too much. And when you run over them with your lawnmower, you're chopping up all those kind of things, which is why I don't like to do that anymore.
I
Now,
do.
when I first moved into my house, we didn't have many leaves because our trees were really small because we just built the house. So I have actually driven through I live in Cumberland, driven through my little village, and I've seen people out filling those paper bags from Canadian Tire with leaves.
You
And
go
I
and steal
stopped and
them?
I said, "Can I have those leaves?" And they were happy to give them to me. One year I scored 6 big bags of leaves. I was so happy. So if you don't have enough leaves in your own yard, there are people out there wanting to get rid of leaves.
And
And
what
if
They're
I
like
found
gold.
works really well with leaves is I put them in sacks and put them up against
oh, there
plants
we
that
go.
are
Yep.
marginally hardy. And that works wonderfully to keep them alive over the winter
Oh,
time.
what a
And the
great
other
And
thing, and I think I put it in the chat, the other thing that I learned to do because I never had enough compost back in the days when I had 400 square feet of vegetables, I never had enough compost and I never had enough leaf mold, is that I take my leaves and I would put them in big plastic bags and tie up the plastic bag and put it up against the house or some spot that would get a bit of winter sun. And by spring, I had the most glorious, slimy leaf mold you have ever seen. And I would just rake it out and rake it in, and the plants would go la la. It was really great.
and your
it is.
neighbors will love you for taking their leaves.
Yeah, yeah.
Believe me.
Someone said that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the point here is that it is really important to protect your soil from the pounding winter rains.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
leaves are the easiest way because they're readily available this time of year. If
Or
you don't
mulch,
have leaves, you can use straw, I even use
yeah,
a layer of grass clippings, something, protect the soil. So
arborist chips.
arborist wood chips are even better.
yeah.
That's not
And
great in a vegetable garden though, because you're going to be
No,
digging
no.
around.
In a vegetable garden, all I do is just put the leaves on
Yeah,
top
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just leave it for the winter.
Well, and
yep. And they'll be
as you
gone by
said,
spring.
yeah, and as you
Yeah,
said in your lecture, Richard, the soil is fed from above in that O layer.
yeah,
And so
it
when you
is.
put those organics back into that O layer, you're supporting the natural stratification
Of the
of your
soil.
soil.
Yeah.
And Mother Nature smart. She figured it out for us. Just
And you do
follow
this
what she
in
told
a
you.
year, and it takes nature thousands of years to get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah. But try to replicate what you see happening out in the wooded areas.
Yeah,
Leaves
exactly.
fall, twigs, branches fall, and they're not piling up, meters
They break
deep.
down.
They are being decomposed from underneath, and the nutrients return to the soil as more fall on top. It's a cycle. And if you
Right.
can create that in your garden, number one, you have way less waste to get rid of. Number two, you'll use the resources. And number three, everything will be healthier.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
yeah.
nature knows how to do it.
Darby has a question.
And I can't put it in the Q&A. It won't let me. I tried. Do any of you use cover crops in your veggie gardens?
I
Oh
have.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It depends on the size.
It's a way of protecting the soil,
Yeah.
first
Yeah,
of all. And it's a
green
way of
manure.
adding nutrients into the soil because the cover crops that are used will deposit the NPK back into the soil in what is called a green form, a highly bioactive form. So it's like superfood for the garden. The caveat with that is your timing, because if you leave, like say, if you plant ryegrass for over winter, and then you decide to go for an early vacation down to Mexico, and you come back at the end of March, and the stuff is a foot and a half high, and it's got a root crop. Oh God! So you do
Will the
have
deer eat
to.
it, Joe?
Well, my cats will eat it, right? Um, so so it is something that
Fiber.
yes, lots of fiber is something that you need to work with and understand. And in lieu of spending the extra money on that cover crop, as both Richard and Deborah have said, use what's around you. Just use what's around you. And that plus whatever compost that you've created during the year from all your kitchen waste and all like that um, is really what your soil will thrive on.
I
One
think
caveat.
the whole idea of cover crops came from agriculture
Yeah,
because there's no way you can take acres and acres and acres of fields and cover them with leaves.
Yeah,
So they came up
you
with cover
try.
crops, and then
yeah.
they get out there with machinery and they
And
plow it
till it
under
under. Yeah,
before it goes to seed. Because if you don't do it before it goes to seed, then you've got new stuff growing up in your vegetable garden this next season. So
yeah,
timing is everything, but it's not often really practical for the home garden. Just use what you've got. Chop
Yeah.
and drop. Any plants in the fall, you don't have to do your fall cleanup and put everything in your garbage or your compost bin that the your municipality's going to haul away.
yeah,
Just chop them up and drop them
yeah,
right there on the plant, and
What
they
I
will.
do is I just blow it into the flower beds, the leaves.
yeah,
And I've only got two trees, so not a lot
Yeah,
of leaves, but
yeah. But
still.
like when you cut down your hostas, that the frost has gotten, just chop them up and drop them right on top of the hosta. You don't have to
and
pull
and
them
and
away.
that's the thing, is that people in nature, the leaves fall right around the plant,
Hmm.
and they help the plant. Golly gee. And so that's and they use the detritus of the plants around them. And it's just like the rhododendrons really like pine needles and all the
Oh,
conifer
please.
droppings, because in nature that's what grows around a rhododendron.
That's where they
And
evolved.
so,
Yeah, in the
pardon?
Yeah,
understory. That's where they
Yeah,
that's where
evolved
they
in the
evolved.
understory.
yeah.
So acid soil and all those evergreen needles and everything. Yeah, that's
And
their
it's
favorite.
not really deep soil either. It's
No.
only,
Yeah.
rhodos
I
are
mean,
not deeply rooted. I think at the most, maybe 12 inches, the roots would go down.
oh yeah. And
Maybe.
I mean, there is the description, and you'll see that background that Darby has of the oak meadow.
Right.
That the description of that type of Mediterranean climate is shallow soil Mediterranean. So it's sitting on that sandstone and that clay. Whereas our friend from Cape Cod, they're used to deep soil. I was absolutely amazed when I moved for a while to Nova Scotia. I mean, I could have dug to China before I got any kind of anything but the most amazing high organic loam. And it's because of all that deciduous forest that's there, that is built, 3 feet of amazing soil. And even when I took all my neighbor's leaves did blow into my yard. He thought he was so funny because you go, oh boy, look at the leaves. They all the way up against your wall. And great, thank you. Of course, he thought I was crazy. And I just piled them on just before the snow. And I thought, boy, am I going to have a mess in the spring? The snow melted, the leaves were gone, just gone. I had nothing but 3 feet of glorious soil. What a country that is on the East Coast.
So we have a question from Wendy Young. I have lots of plants, 50 or so. I've divided and are in pots waiting for new garden beds next year. I partly submerge the pots into veg beds over the winter until I'm ready to plant. Wonderful idea. I thought it would help the soil nutrients and wash out and give better frost protection for the young plants. Is it a good idea? I would say it's probably a wonderful idea because one, you're protecting the roots, and you have to remember that plants in pots, you can subtract two zones. So if you're an 8B, you can say that you're probably a 7A in a pot, right? So then you would have to have a plant that's hardy to 7A, even though
Yeah.
you're an 8B.
Yeah. And
So
and containing those roots over winter, particularly in that plastic pot, it does insulate itself, and the root tips are not going to get burned
right.
or frosted. And even if if it's growing a little bit over winter and it's slightly root bound, that's okay. You go to the website and you look at Deborah's
Debs.
root washing techniques on how to plant things. And just again, pile those leaves over top of the pot. What about putting wood, logs, and sticks into the layers of a new garden, like a hugel mound? I know hugel mounds were very fashionable at one time. Again, go to Dr. Chalker Scott's myth busting sites about it. The simple answer is the hugel mound was made in a particular climate to get rid of the wood stalks, and all that wood was up above soil that wasn't very good, and then stuff was put on top of it. So it was simply creating a type of raised bed. But in thinking that the hugel mound is just like the soil layers that Richard mentioned is not true. And
No.
and the short thing that Dr. Chalker Scott said is look at the hugel mound, and it's exactly backwards. So yes, if you want to put logs and sticks into the garden, just remember that they're going to decompose very slowly. So you're better to chop them up into little tiny pieces and help them be part of arborist mulch, which is simply a compilation of everything, and put it on the garden. Remember that in this climate, if you have a lot of wood chunks sitting on top of the soil, you will attract pill bugs. And pill bugs are wonderful. They're little composters, but come spring, they are also attracted to all the little delicate stems of the plants, particularly vegetables that you're growing. They go away, but why attract them? So that's about putting the wood and stuff on the garden.
In my raised beds, I did put wood at the bottom. It was mostly small twigs and leaves and stuff like that. The reason why I did it is my beds are like 3 feet, 4 feet high.
Yeah.
And to fill them with completely with soil was just going to be astronomical
Oh
cost.
yeah, and that soil would just get compacted so fast. So
Yeah.
you're creating air pockets for it to all, and plus that down deep like that, it is going to compost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I put it in. And it does
Yeah.
adds the deep rooted vegetables and stuff will get down to it to
And
the
yeah, and
the
you've got
composted wood.
natural air pockets, and
Yeah.
if that's what Sylvia is referring to, oh yeah, that will definitely work.
Mhm.
Um, but the other, not so much.
I'm just putting a link right now into Dr. Chalker Scott's paper on hugelkultur. If you just give me a second, it took me a while to find it.
Yeah,
Uh,
burying wood for water retention. No, again, Sylvia, as you just heard the conversation, it doesn't hold water. It will create air pockets.
Pockets where water
Yeah.
will be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And and if what you're doing is for overwinter, you don't really want water retention. Water retention in the soil is just as Richard Sessions says, has to do with friability. You don't want pools of water. You want it percolating through the soil.
Okay, lacking any.
The other issue with putting wood, I have really deep stock tanks that I use to make my raised beds. And I did all this before I even did my master gardener training, so I didn't know any better. And it said start with layers of branches and things, and then twigs, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, what I found is as all of those things have been decomposing, the level of the soil is sinking, sinking, sinking,
Right.
which that was, I don't know why that didn't, occur to me when I was doing it, but I regret putting all that wood in the bottom of there because the soil is, now I've got to keep topping it up all the time.
Well, what I do is I grow my tomatoes in pots, big pots, and I use the soil because I use new soil every year for the tomatoes. I empty that soil or the potting mix in my beds.
Yeah.
You might as well use it. I paid for it. So,
Yeah.
and it's organic
Yeah.
material. So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and the truth is that the potting mixes that you buy in the big bags, they don't really have any soil in them.
no,
They're organic matter
mostly, yeah.
and sand, and they stuff that just over time, just most of it just disappears because it
Yeah.
decomposes and just is gone.
Yeah.
Other than the
Yeah.
perlite, if there's perlite in it and stuff like that. But,
Yeah. But it's not actually soil. So
Yeah.
No.
The
It's
main
dirt.
value I found in planting in the big stock tanks is the reflective qualities of the metal. And I would put my lettuces and whatnot where they would actually have, like 2 feet of this metal around it, and it worked like a Dutch light,
yeah.
and created this heat in the winter. And so I had a Dutch light, which is just a small composting greenhouse box that sits on the soil, and so I had it all pre-made for me, and I got my salad greens probably a good 3 weeks early. That was like planted in ground, right? So you might try that. It really worked for me.
Yeah. Well, the reason I did the stock tanks for my raised beds is that they're taller and you don't have to bend over so much.
Oh, but
That's
anything above 2 feet is good for you. It's for those that don't know, our wonderful Deborah is vertically challenged.
Yes.
Right?
She
She's a
doesn't have to
woman
buy
of
as much
average.
soil, Joe.
She's a woman of average stature. Right?
Well, a little less than average. I'm 5'1", just in case you wanted to know.
Okay, well, not seeing any more questions or anything else. I have a few things I'd like to talk about. First of all, in February of next year, we're having Deb redo Pruning Basics, and it's going to be an
Updated and expanded with lots more pictures
good.
and more organized, better information because I now actually know how to do a presentation.
And in March, we have Dorothy Kieser, who will be doing propagation. A panel discussion in this April, spring prep. And that's about it for now. But no, keep tuned in. I'd like to thank you all for watching us and for, all those views and everything else. It just warms our heart to know that, we're appreciated. Yeah. And have a great Christmas, or Hanukkah, or if you celebrate either of the two.
Solstice.
Yeah.
Or for the lady who's here from California, have a lovely Thanksgiving, which is in about
Oh yeah, that's
That's right. I
coming up.
forgot.
Yeah.
Our
Right.
Southern friends. You hold your Turkey Day much later than we do.
Fourth Thursday of November. Yes.
Right.
We have
Right.
ours in October.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richard. And all three of you, you are so dedicated to this whole partnership and sharing your knowledge. Master gardeners are some of the most generous people that I have met, and I know some pretty lovely people. So thank you from the library and from our viewers and listeners for continuing to support everybody so well.
Right.
Yeah,
And
you guys out there are the reason that we're here. So
Yes.
thank you.
Their
yeah,
spouses
and
won't listen to them talk about gardening forever. That's why.
That's right.
Here.
Absolutely.